Morning, folks. Phil Gallagher of ThrabenU here for another stream. Although this one is not a legacy stream, this one is a vintage stream. Nathan Lebetz bribed me to play a vintage league with his Painter Grindstone list. I haven't played a lot of vintage in the past 2 years. I used to play a decent amount of shops. I did some vintage paper leagues that allowed proxies, and I mostly played like shops, humans, D&T, Eldrazi, those styles of deck. So I have no experience playing something quite like this one, but hopefully we'll figure it out along the way. So the traditional Painter Grindstone combo that we see in Legacy is here, but it's supplemented by a handful of broken, restricted one-ofs and an Emery package. So plan A, let's just move these to the mana pile. Plan A here is to just assemble Painter Grindstone and mill your opponent out. And that should work a good majority of the time. But you have some plan Bs available to you. So plan B is Tinker for Bolas's Citadel to cast 1,000,000,000 cards, and technically you can also kill your opponent by sacking 20 permanents over 2 turns, but, you know, that part's pretty sketchy. That's probably not going to happen. Or Underworld Breach Brain Freeze. Now, assuming that you assemble Underworld Breach Brain Freeze, you can kill either via repeatedly casting Lightning Bolt or repeatedly casting something like, where is it? Move things around. There's a Brain Freeze. Or repeatedly casting the Brain Freeze. It may seem kind of weird that like you have a whole bunch of singletons here, but remember that in Vintage you get things like Vampiric Tutor and Demonic Tutor that really help to smooth things out. And if we have like Breach and Yawgmoth's Will, we can kind of like play more copies of these effectively. Let's resort this by converted mana cost. So the other thing that supports this deck is a graveyard-based package. So Emery mills and lets you get your artifacts back from your graveyard, which is conveniently just about everything that you care about in this deck, and Goblin Welder also helps you get stuff back as well. I'm going to admit up front that I don't know where the current Vintage metagame is at. I know graveyard decks are becoming more popular, and Hogak is starting to see significantly more Vintage play. But that's about the extent of what I know about current Vintage, other than the occasional ramblings from my co-host about various paradoxical outcome builds. So I can guarantee you that I am going to make mistakes today based on not understanding what my opponent is doing and understanding their goal and that sort of thing. I'm probably going to fight on the wrong cards and get punished for it, but we'll just kind of see how it goes. Notably, in our sideboard, we have 4 Tormod's Crypt for the graveyard matchups, a whole bunch of bounce spells for the shops type matchups, and then a couple of Flusterstorms for the fair blue matchups. It doesn't really look like we're going to board too much for the fair blue matchups. With that said, figure out how to jump into a Vintage League. Vintage League. Painter Breach. Let's go. I have no time. I have no idea what the queue time is going to be like here. There aren't that many active players in the Vintage Leagues. It's a little early for America, and there's also Gen Con events going on today. But that was pleasant. So this hand seems like I try to Vampiric Tutor for Brain Freeze and then go off via my graveyard. And I can fight over my Vampiric Tutor on turn 1 pretty easily. Be able to fetch black. I have Underground Sea or Badlands. Sure. I have no idea if the hand that I've kept is actually powerful enough. Sort of Hate Bears deck, maybe? Or some sort of lands deck, actually. Okay, so this is the vintage lands deck that just goes absolutely crazy with, like, I think, Pass Bond? The jig is up, I have nothing. Alright, what do you have? Ah! Is it... Okay. Is this a good enough vintage start? Like, I know nothing about the format, but... Eh. We have an LED? We have an LED. I have an Abrade for that Null Rod. It kind of seems like I just want a Vampiric Tutor for a land. Draw that land, play a turn to Emery or a Braid, and go from there. I don't know, like, I think I'm just gonna Gitaxian Probe now. I know I like don't get great value out of that, but if I probe now and I draw a land, less necessary for me to get a land in the future. There's definitely something a little bit silly about this. I would like to go. I would like to go. I would like to play the Magics. Magic? My opponent just gonna concede after playing Bloodstained Mire? After I play Bloodstained Mire? Boy, this pineapple sure is tasty. Where does pineapple fall on the fruit and veggie tier list? I feel like it's decently tasty, has the upside of being used as a drink garnish. Wheat. A little contentious due to the whole pineapple pizza situation. So, like, clearly not an S tier fruit slash veggie, but it's gotta be up there. I feel like pineapple probably falls into like the A or B tier. Yeah, my opponent has lost connection to the game. I feel like it's 50-50 on whether or not this was actual lost connection or whether my opponent just like tilted off after like a null rod start that shut off two of their own cards and then I didn't play any artifacts. Unclear. But what is like the top of the fruit and veggie tier list? Because there's the things that are like widely liked. You know, your apples, your oranges. But at the end of the day, they're kind of mundane, right? They're fine, they taste good, they're widely liked. But you don't just go, man, I would really love an orange or an apple when you're at a fancy restaurant, right? Oh, my opponent has made it back. Good, because I didn't really know where this whole fruit and veggie bit was going. I was just trying to kill time, but I'm sure you know that. Maybe it's the versatile potato. The versatile potato is at the top. I think just Volcanic Island. Yeah, I think that's my plan. I don't really feel like I need to abrade yet. Like, I can just leave this Null Rod in play and shut off a whole bunch of my opponent's stuff. My opponent just has a Caracas. I can play Emery, fuel my graveyard a bit, and then try to abrade the turn before I go off. But again, I don't know what I need to be playing around. Ooh, opponent did not bounce the Emery. Opponent still did not bounce the Emery. Wow. To be fair, opponent's head is probably not in the game after disconnecting. But, like, that's definitely a thing. Okay, they've seen it now. Um, Monic Tutor for LED. I think I'm 1 mana short of going off this turn. Pyroblast, Null Rod, Demonic Tutor for LED. Yeah, I think I need another turn. But things can happen with Emery, I suppose. Like finding an LED. The LED. To braid this end of turn. Also just like Pyroblast this one land. That must be pretty appealing, right? It leaves the Emery in play. I don't like know how scared to be of my opponent's deck. Like I don't know how quickly I need to be trying to goldfish them. Alright, my opponent has conceded here. We are probably killing them within a turn cycle or so pretty easily. John, I think they were just doing something for the sake of doing it to concede. I don't think there was anything super high level there. I think they were just like, I have these, and conceded. Okay, so I can choose to try to fight Mirage, I can choose to try to fight their graveyard, I can choose to try to fight Thespian Stage, I can choose to try to fight Mirage. I have a lot of things that I can board in, but I don't really know how many things I am supposed to board in. I don't have matchup experience. Or, experience. I feel like Defense Grid can go out for other things. I feel like Echoing Truth answers things like Null Rod while also answering Merit Lodge. A couple of these is probably fine. Like, maybe Echoing Truth ends up being better than a Braid. I don't know. Maybe I also want access to Graveyard Hate because, like, once I have a Tormod's Crypt with Emery, I can keep recurring it, which is pretty good. The Pyroblasts are Vindicates when I have Painter Servant, but otherwise they're eh. Maybe I do something like this, fight the graveyard a little, fight the stuff that my opponent plays a little, and then just try to, like, grind them out. I'm giving my opponent enough credit for being able to, like, understand how their Dark Depths works. Like, they're down 4 or 5 minutes because of the disconnect. I think that was entirely a time saving thing. This hand is fine, maybe, but it has like 2 engine cards that I'm not really ready to use with this hand. I think I'm gonna ship this one. Yeep. This is pretty good against me with this hand. Alright, so the good news is I can snag Loam. Island, Mountain are available to me. I don't need another basic land. Also, my opponent has a random Bojuka Bog in hand, which is kind of annoying with the two things that I have right now. We'll see what I can do about it. I think I just play Underground Sea past the turn, Grindstone myself, try to get them to blow the Bojuka Bog so I can find Inner Servant with Goblin Engineer. I believe that is my current plan. We just hit Ruby and Volcanic Island, unfortunately. We'll see. There are worlds where our opponent just like plays Bojuka Bog anyway. I think I'm just passing the turn here. Fog is quite the nuisance. Not willing to sacrifice the wasteland. Activate Reclaimer. Hmm. Oh. Okay. Willing to get a basic island here, but this does mean that I don't have access to a tutor if I draw one. Maybe I breach for not a kill. Maybe I just breach and try to get some, like a Sensei's Divining Top and do something with that, question mark. Yeah, doesn't feel great. Now, do I play Valerian Academy and let it get wastelanded? Produces 3 mana. I can top, look for. I need like both LED and Brain Freeze to try to go off. I don't really want to get this Academy wastelanded. I can just go like Mox Ruby, Exile, Crypt Underground Sea, Breach. Use that to top in this turn cycle. Also use that to just put a Goblin Welder in play. That seems fine. And put the Goblin Welder in play, and then try to use that plus Tolarian Academy plus Goblin Engineer to maybe give myself a win next turn. All right. Two mana tutor with Goblin Engineer. Weld like top into Painter. Play Tolarian Academy, activate Grindstone, win. Seems like I've successfully played around the Bojuka Bog. Well, the Bojuka Bog is in their hand. And they just attacked with Elvish Reclaimer. So I think I'm good. Unless there are multiple bogs. Order. Do I play Tolarian Academy, tap it for 4 mana? think so. Alright, so let's play this. Gonna hold priority. Activate top. Goblin welder. Top or painter. Opponent says kind of disconnect or kind of punted game one. Yeah, I don't know if we win game one if our opponent doesn't let us get a couple extra cards into the graveyard via Emery. That's a little bit unclear. All right, I'm going to take just a second here to get rid of my breakfast, so this isn't in front of me anymore. I will be right back. Yeah, I deserve the way that the mana worked out there. I did have the mana to do that. But I don't know what I'm playing. Like, I don't know what my opponent has, so I don't know what I need to be playing around. And I don't know. I guess I could have looked for a Pyroblast. But if my opponent has anything, it happens in response to me drawing the card with top anyway. I'm just trying to think like, what? I don't disagree that that's something that I should have done, but I'm also trying to think of like, what matters? I don't know, maybe I could have like drawn an Echoing Truth, and then that lets me like bounce one of my own permanents in case they target it with a removal spell or something. But like, what removal spell would they have? IDK. Not much overlap. between the legacy trophy leaders and the vintage trophy leaders. I don't recognize many of these names. I recognize this, this. Of the ones up at the top here. Not surprising. The vintage players tend to be pretty dedicated to the format, kind of in the same way that the legacy players are. So you end up with a lot of specialists or a lot of people who like love vintage because it's allows them to play with cards that they like have owned for a long time or like they grew up with as a kid, that sort of thing. Has a lot of like sentimental value to people. But yeah, my day's going pretty well. Started playing Fire Emblem Three Houses on I think Thursday. Probably put about 5 hours into the game now. Seems really fun so far. I haven't played a traditional RPG. Well, I don't know if you count the tactics RPGs as traditional RPGs. I do, but I haven't played an RPG of that nature in a few years. Um, Probably about 2 years ago, I played one of the Disgaea games. That's the last time I played something kind of like this. So it's a nice departure from all the like card-based things that I've been doing on stream. Monster Train stuff's going pretty well. I'm I've got recordings for about the next 2 weeks queued up. Not uploaded, but at least recorded. So that if things get crazy this week when the teacher work week starts, I'll be good to go for a little while. But that's something that I intend on doing for the foreseeable future, assuming that like work isn't just absolutely insane and crazy this year. Well, more insane and crazy than I expect it to be. Let's see what else is going on. Things are going great on the podcast. We'll talk about this when we record the next episode, but we received a lot of donations after the last episode. We were in a bit of a financial pinch. We had been losing a lot of money making the podcast, like to the point where we were starting to have conversations about whether or not we were going to continue if it trended this way. And then we received a huge influx of donations after we said like, hey, we maybe need to be looking for a sponsor or we need some more donations or we're going to have to stop. And then like the community rallied and absolutely had our back. And that was very, very heartening. That felt good. It was very validating. Try to make the next episode extra super special awesome to make sure people are getting their bang for their bucks of donation. Hey, I found a match. I can't do anything. With 5 mana turn 1, I can demonic tutor for something that costs 3 and play it on turn 1. Hold on. I can demonic tutor for Black Lotus and just try to floop a Bolas's Citadel into play on turn 1. Oh wait, hold on. I have to pay 1 for Soul Ring. We can try that turn 2. Sure? No? Keep? I have no idea. How hard is it to counter a Bolas's Citadel? I have like two, no, three restricted cards in my hand, and it has to be keepable, right? Morning, Van Wedge. Where can I find your content? YouTube under ThrabenU will work. I also have my own website, ThrabenUniversity.com. It happens to be down at this exact moment. I chose to stream this morning rather than troubleshoot the website. Sure you understand. Yes, you were looking for the right place. That place just happens to be down. I messaged my buddy yesterday, but he didn't have a chance to get back to me. I deserve. Thank you very much for following. The YouTube the YouTube channel has some great stuff from the past 2 weeks. In particular, the Planeswalker Enchantress Legacy stream that I uploaded last night is really ridiculous. Highly recommend that one. Posted that one to Reddit this morning. So I don't really have the ability to know what my opponent is playing based on these cards. Like, these are just generic blue things. I don't know if my opponent is like a paradoxical outcome deck. I don't know if they're a control deck. Like, that's just not clear to me yet. I won the flip. I'm a master. I don't have anything like a bobble, right? I don't. No, I don't have a way to self discard, I don't think. So I can just go for Bolas's Citadel. Seems like Demonic Tutor or Black Lotus when I have Emery can't be that bad of a line. Badlands here, Badlands here. Oh, neat, it resolved. Black Lotus, cast Black Lotus. Oh, baby, we're going. I don't even have to discard my hand with this. This card is so good. I just take it back now? I think I just take it back now. I don't know what pieces of soft permission I need to play around on the Bolas's Citadel, but I have 4, 5, 6, 7. I have a Black Lotus, I can play around something like a Spell Pierce. Okay, force pitch a repeal. That's fine. So now we go Black Lotus, crack for red, play a Goblin Welder, which I don't know, could get Mental Misstepped or something. And Goblin Engineer. Now the world is my oyster. I have like a payoff card in the graveyard. I have a huge mana rock in graveyard. Do I take half of my combo here? Or do I just take something like a defense grid? I feel like I take the Painter's Servant so that if I draw blasts, they're online or non-blue cards. I can also now like weld out this Mana Crypt so the Mana Crypt doesn't kill me in the long term. See if I just die though. I mean, I'll vouch for Honorug. Honorug makes great content. I'm not going to call myself a stream regular, but a lot of times I tune in for a few minutes while I'm eating like lunch or dinner or something. Ah, Breach. Brain freeze, LED. So this is probably a damned if I do, damned if I don't situation. I guess I give them one of the two brain freezes. We're probably dead. Like they can cast the LED from either zone. The LED discards the brain freeze. Yeah. Yeah, they have LED breach, brain freeze. Oh, sorry, they have Black Lotus, not LED. Ah! So I kind of just want to see the deck. Normally I would concede here. Um, but I would like to just see more of what my opponent has going on because I actually don't know. Ooh, gosh. A card I haven't seen in a long time because I don't play much Vintage. Yeah, after this I'll have seen enough of their deck where I'll feel like I kind of know what's happening. Yeah, a bunch of those targeted me. Alright, I'm gonna go ahead and call that good. Looks like they don't want to show me too many more cards. How does this deck fare against Doomsday and Paradoxical Outcome? I don't know. I haven't played this matchups before. I haven't played any matchups before with this deck. So, Fluster seems fine, and Tormod's Crypts are okay. They're recursive, which is fine, but like sometimes these sorts of decks can still just like beat a Tormod's Crypt. That said, I still probably play some, maybe not 4, but some. My opponent's deck played counter magic, like a lot of counter magic, enough that like my defense grids are good. Or are my defense grids just bad because there's only a couple cards that they actually hit? Someone who knows Vintage better, if you could chime in, that'd be great. I feel like I want to board about 5 cards. And grid is one of the things that's not essential to my engine in any capacity. Makes me want to cut it, but like I don't know what my opponent's sideboard plans are in terms of like the amount of counter spells that they're going to have. I also don't really know. Bright Dragons. I'm not boarding out my Lightning Bolt. That's an alternative win condition for this deck anyway after I start freezing. Maybe something like this? I really don't know. Like, having never played with a vintage painter deck before, I don't know how critical everything is to the engine. What is Lotus here? Very good. Fetch Underground Sea, probably. Vampiric Tutor for Lotus. Play Lotus. Into Embry. No, no. Play Lotus into Welder Grindstone. Play Emery turn 2. This is maybe fine. We'll find out. Ah, I see. Opponent has the potential to combo off very quickly. Yeah, maybe Grindstone Emery is just better. have like guaranteed Black Lotus next turn again. Ooh, bottom bottom with that. I wonder if they've bricked on a land. Nope, they found one. Notably, there's not red mana yet. Crypt is decent. I guess we're just taking back Lotus, playing Welder. Possible just using Lotus to grindstone myself is better. But let's get more moving parts into play. Yeah, that's fine. Definitely feels weird that Preordain is like the cantrip line where everyone's like, yes, this is fine. You can do this. I fluster that, you fluster back, I'm sad. Yep. I still have Welder. Send her away my grindstone for Lotus in the short term to do cool things if I need to. I don't know that that's worth losing my grindstone for. Like it's grindstone, get Lotus, cast Time Walk, but that cost me like this for an extra turn. And maybe just chill on that. Also like kind of awkward if like that gets flusterstormed and then I die. Okay. We're just gonna play some Drago Vintage where my opponent is making land drops and I'm not. That's fine, right? Right? I don't think it's fine. I feel dead. Like my opponent has Breach plus Brain Freeze plus Fluster. Uh, I mean, don't think I let. I don't think I can let them have another time walk. I think I also want to weld my grindstone into a new crypt now. Just have that as another layer of protection. Not like this grindstone is winning me the game right now. That's interesting. But I don't think it's going to let me do anything cute through my opponent's Flusterstorm. I feel like I'm getting crushed by the weight of land drops ever so slowly. My opponent just has no reason to do anything. Ah! Gormat's Crypt for Lotus have 4 mana. I wonder if I can win, actually. I have 4 mana. No. Can't really beat their Flusterstorm on my things that I try to fight with. So, like, I go Breach, they counter with something that's not Flusterstorm. I go Pyroblast, they go Fluster. I go Fluster, they pay for some. Close. But I like, if I start a fight that I can't win, I like 100% lose to Breach plus Brain Freeze. So I think I just kind of chill for as long as possible. Like, try to get my opponent to start the fight, hopefully win the fight, and then go from there. Yep. That occurs. I don't like it. Yep. The goal is trying to get this Brain Freeze out of the graveyard. Is going to prove problematic. So they cast a Brain Freeze. I let all the copies but the original resolve, and then I crypt. believe that has to be my plan. My other plan can be just like weld my crypt for Lotus and try to actually fight with pyroblasts and stuff. I think if my opponent has like two brain freezes, I start to have trouble. Let's get this out of here. I can now crypt them. The original brain freeze goes to the graveyard. They do have the three things required to do it. I don't really know that this crypt gets me out of this. Fluster backup is brutal. Maybe I just let this resolve and let them keep going. Oh. Alright. I don't think this gets here. Maybe my line is like sit on it and try to eat a win condition. No, like the brain freeze is also the win condition. Oh, I wonder if I had a line involving like weldering their. Shoot, I wonder if I had a line that involved weldering their Lotus. Oh man, I might have. I kind of need them to drop Flusterstorm mana. I don't think that should ever happen now that they have like Black Lotus plus floating mana. There are worlds, but I think I'm dead. Yeah, they're doing a pretty good job of just playing around a Flusterstorm. This one's non-lethal. I should just let it resolve. They have 11 cards in graveyard. They also just have the ability to brain freeze me again still with this many cards in graveyard. So I fluster, I counter most of these, they just brain freeze again. Okay, I'm dead. Alright, we have confirmation that I am dead. Yeah, that was a really awkward game. Despite the fact that I had Black Lotus that was recursive, I kind of got stuck on mana. I couldn't just keep Lotusing every turn because it cost me an artifact via Welder. And I had a handful of things that I really couldn't effectively cast. My opponent got to play, like, the game where they continued to advance their board while I didn't do anything. And after a few turns of that, I was just kind of dead. I don't know. Maybe my line was to just, like, go for it and hope that they can't counter my Underworld Breach on my previous turn. But it just kind of felt like they had to have some form of interaction. So, I don't know. Again, I lack experience in Vintage, so hard for me to like say decisively the points where I'm doing things right and wrong and like know for sure. I can identify the points where I know that a decision is made and I know that I don't have enough information, but that's about it. This list is interesting to me, but it feels less objectively powerful than a lot of the vintage decks that I've played in the past. So I'm used to playing with shops, where like almost every opening hand you're doing something degenerate. And this deck feels like incredibly fair by vintage standards. I don't feel as fast as other combo decks. I'm kind of like annoyingly resilient, and that's probably the strength of this deck is its resiliency. But I don't know that resiliency is the angle that I want to be attacking from in vintage. Like when you can throw down turn one haymakers that cost 3 or more mana, like very consistently playing shops. I don't know that I want to be the guy on Painter Grindstone who is looking to play the long game. Because I feel like there's so many common cards that see vintage play, like Null Rod, that are randomly going to do a lot of damage to this deck. This one like is in the kind of category, but like when we get Null Rotted, we lose out on like our primary win condition, as well as some of the enablers for our secondary win condition that's like graveyard and storm based. Yeah, I don't know how I feel about this deck. I don't think this deck is like bad, but I don't know. My conceptual approach on vintage has always been try to do the most broken thing that you can do. And this deck doesn't fit in conceptually with how I tend to vintage. We'll see. Like, if you are into just like a deck that can grind through a lot of blue mush, like this degree of recursion plus redundancy seems fine. But I don't know. Legacy games have been going much better recently. I've now had like 3 or 4 leagues in a row that have actually been reasonable leagues rather than just like me getting stomped with minimal interaction. So that's been really nice. The Planeswalker Enchantress deck from yesterday that I played on stream was actually really, really good. Like, surprisingly so. Lists from Japan are always like totally crazy and next level. There's a little bit more of a, I don't know, maybe it's a cultural thing. There's more of a desire to try something that's a little bit outside of the box without living there. I don't know exactly why that is, but like a lot of the Japanese lists end up like as these absolutely crazy next level deck lists that often have really cool ideas associated with them. I'm gonna ship this one. This powerful enough hand for vintage, or do I go to 5? Just hold up a Pyroblast on turn 1. Uh, yes. Yes, I keep this rather than go to 5. Maybe we get to like fight over an Ancestral or something with this Pyroblast and everything's good. Yeah, I have a few too many lands here. Is that worth jamming? Probably worth jamming. Next turn I can play Painter and then have a Pyroblast for whatever it is I need to have a Pyroblast for. Wonder if I just die for playing Defense Grid though. If my opponent's a combo deck and I just like put myself off the ability to Pyroblast during their turn, it's awkward. And that's what I wanted to Pyroblast. Oh no. We're playing against PO and I probably just died for tapping out for Defense Grid. Yeah, maybe not yet. Okay. It does not seem like I am dead yet. Can hold up a 3-mana Pyroblast. Catch. Oh, maybe I am dead. Yeah! I mean, we'll find out. But opponent is going to get to look at a lot of cards here. If they're continuing to play cards, that probably means that they found another one. Alright. Moral of the story is Defense Grid is getting boarded out. Alright, so there's 3 paradoxical outcomes. They have 15 cards in hand. Seems solid. At this point, my opponent could kill me with a Grape Shot. This is a long pause when I feel like I should be dead. Maybe I'm not dead? Question mark. Maybe I'm not dead. Well, I've got to be dead now. So they can Teferi minus bounce one of their Moxen to draw whatever card they put on top with Vamp Tutor. Then what happens? Just bounce Defense Grid? Did they fizzle? My opponent drew 12, 13, 14 cards this turn, and I didn't die. Well, I enjoy that quite a bit. So we can just like try to Pyroblast Teferi and hope that that does a thing. Like Pyroblast Teferi. Now play Defense Grid, then Pyroblast Teferi. Like, our Pyroblast is not going to do anything unless we get rid of Teferi. This is awkward. Uh, we got a Tinker. I think I let this resolve and still try to kill the Teferi. Oof. Okay. So now can you kill us with a bunch more mana? Or is this just going to turn into sort of an awkward game where I try to put on some bad beats? Ooh. Alright, so for the legacy players who aren't super familiar with this card, you can look at the top card of your library at any time. You can play lands and cast spells from it, but if you cast a card this way, you pay life equal to its CMC, rather than pay its mana cost. Alright, so I feel like between that tutor and Bolas's Citadel, we should be very dead. I think my opponent casts a Paradoxical Outcome, draws a billion cards. Ooh, a Mentor. That should probably get me dead as well. Oh, there was a Time Walk in there while I was explaining what Bolas's Citadel did. Okay, I should be very dead. The opponent does not have a secondary monk yet, so I could survive the turn. We'll see. I think I'm dead, but like in Vintage, you have random things like Ancestral that can sometimes bail you out of really weird spots. So I don't know. There might be a line involving like drawing Black Lotus and Grindstone off of an Ancestral that gets me out of this situation. So if I'm not like stone cold actually dead, I probably shouldn't concede here. This is a paradoxical outcome for a very large number. 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, maybe 7, 8, 9, depending on how they want to do this. Oh no, it's non-land, non-token. I can't return the monks. I mean, doing it for 6 is still pretty good. My opponent's Teferis seem better than my defense grids, I'm just saying. Seem to do a significant amount more. Wonder if I am actually just going to die to the Mentor this turn, just like getting turned sideways and attacking. Storm count's getting up there. We're up to 10 damage off the Mentor already. Opponent still has 8 life and 17 cards to work with. Oh, right. Colossus Citadel. Stack 10 of these to just kill me. I am just deterministically dead. Okay. Yeah, I'll go ahead and concede here then. Good point, Arglypuff. Alright. I get a couple of flusters. Or calls a recalling opponent in response to a paradoxical outcome actually good? Probably not. But it's real cute. I want to get these defense grids out of my deck so that my counter spells can actually be live. So then, like, what do I do from there? Like, I can technically bridge for Mentor. I can technically Pithing Needle a Bolas's Citadel, but both of those things are, like, decisively Maybe I'll bring in an Echoing Truth to bounce random things like Teferi. Yeah, so, like, I'm not a super controlling deck. I'm like this deck that is supposed to grind through other decks. And it feels like when I'm playing against another combo deck, I'm just at an inherent disadvantage. I don't think Welder Pass is a very good vintage opening. I think I'm gonna mull this hand and try to look for something a little bit more degenerate. Turn one Tinker? Min? Throw back the Emo Tutor? Memory is my plan if things go wrong. Okay. We can attempt a turn one Tinker. Alright, so let's throw this Bolas's Citadel into play. Ooh. Alright. I mean, like, we still have a resolved Bolas's Citadel. Iced Kiwi, that's potentially a good line. I was kind of on, like, probe, make sure the coast is clear, and then go for it, rather than wait. Okay. The opponent has played Mox, Emerald, and Tolarian Academy, and Demo Tutor. Oh man, my opponent just gets to PO on turn one. Rough. Art on this is kind of cool. Oh, it can vamp tutor or PO if they don't already have it. No, they have to have something that draws this, right? So this is now gone, and this is now gone. Okay, Ancestral has drawn the cards that were on top. Now they have whatever they wanted from the Vamp Tutor. Time Walk. Okay. Yeah, that's a good point, Iced Kiwi. I've said this a few times before, but I don't know what I need to be playing around. I'm a Legacy specialist, so like I don't know if they're like I don't know how they're going to board, so I don't know if I need to be playing around something like them bringing in Echoing Truth when I don't think they really know what we were doing. All right, so my opponent has Yogg's Will going. They have Demonic Tutor. I feel like I'm dead. And they fizzled last game, so anything can happen. They just killed us after fizzling anyway. The PO for 5. Oh, Mentor? Yeah, I don't know that I get to like brute force my way out of this one with Bolas's Citadel. I'm basically already dead to the Time Walk. Like they're gonna need another draw spell or something, but like casting a Time Walk so they actually get to attack me with the monks they make this turn is probably pretty huge. So then they just like put a PO on top of their deck and then kill me next turn. Yeah. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 spells already. I am already dead to those monks. Okay. Got it. Seems good. So in the past when I played fair blue decks, um, my Tinker targets have usually won the game on their own in one turn cycle. In Bolas's Citadel, this Bolas's Citadel doesn't exactly do that in this deck, right? So like, unlike Turbo Forge in Legacy, where like the Mystic Forge can tap itself to cleanse the top of your library, Bolas's Citadel doesn't do that. So like when you get stuck with lands on top, your stream kind of just stops. So it's not like something like a Blightsteel Colossus where like you put that in play and your opponent has one turn to answer it or they die in most cases. He says as he proceeds to keep another turn 1 Tinker hand. I have not. Kiwi, thank you very much for following. Hope you are enjoying the content, despite the fact that don't exactly know what I'm doing. Mental misstep, huh? Uh, at this point, let's Ancestral me and see what happens. Actually, maybe I Defense Grid and then Ancestral me. That's probably worth a card. I'm probably doing both this turn anyway. Okay. This is fine. Panium, thank you very much for subscribing. Glad to see some support for Vintage. This is the first time we're streaming Vintage on this channel. Neat. How do I YOLO Tinker Bolas's Citadel? I mean, it's not YOLO, like, it's resolving. Like, is that better than Emery plus Demo? Okay, so I guess Demo gets me Black Lotus. Demo, Black Lotus, Tinker, yeah, we're probably okay. Yeah, this is fine. Okay, so order. It's really awkward if Emery puts Bolas's Citadel into the graveyard. Right, so I Tinker first. Okay, so I can't cast that Goblin Welder right now. So I'll Emery, which still costs 1 mana because the Bolas Citadel replaced itself. An Underworld Breach, can't cast that. So I guess we're stopping here. I don't know how I feel about, like, Bolas's Citadel again as a card that is my primary Tinker target. And now I just have this Breach on top of my library that resolves, and, like, I can bumble my way through a way to kill my opponent via Black Lotus Underworld Breach. Yeah, we'll figure it out. Okay, how could I have gone off there? What did I miss? Okay. Yeah, maybe I was playing too conservatively by not going for the breach last turn. I felt like giving my opponent a turn when they just had Dreadhorde Arcanist in play was fine, but maybe maybe I could do it. All right. I don't really know that I'm bored. Like it kind of seems that if my opponent is going to be playing a like fair blue deck, the resiliency our deck has to offer is what we're looking for in the first place. I can board Fluster so that I can protect my stuff a little bit better. That's about the only thing that I could see myself doing. But I don't really know what I would cut. So basically the deck's perfect. I'll adjust for game 3 if I lose. Okay, what does this hand do? Get probe to look. No turn 1 Emery as is. Eh. And gets a decisive from me. Let's mull. Eep. I will I will eventually combo off somehow with this. If I don't die. Wow. Oh, okay. That seems very aggro. Nice. Opponent just discards a card. Oh, this blanket's very comfortable. I live in this blanket. It has become a part of me since quarantine started. Well, we're gonna blast that. Fuck. Oof. Now I just get like strip mined and I die. My opponent is presumably some 4 to 5 color control deck. They have a delve spell? The treasure cruise? Yeah. So if I knew what deck my opponent was playing, I would concede here. But I don't know what deck my opponent is playing, so I'm gonna figure out how they kill me. That works in this format too? Okay, so all these Pyroblasts that I have are gonna be real sweet, basically. Okay, I think I'm comfortable throwing in the towel there. Double Planeswalker with opponent having 5 cards and I have no mana sources. That seems fine. Um, I still don't know that I'm supposed to sideboard. Like maybe a copy or two of Echoing Truth so that I can bounce some of these Planeswalkers that slip into play is not crazy. Or Needle for them. Yeah, maybe Needle is fine. Maybe let's board a couple of cards like Grim and Engineer. Maybe Trim, like an Engineer, a Welder. Defense Grid's a real good elk. Maybe I trim one of these and just bring in 3 cards. Try that. Don't want to trim too many things. And does nothing. But it does a lot of nothing. I think I have to ship this one. Like, how many draws do I have that make this hand insane? I don't know. Like, if I draw a big payoff card, like Tinker, Bolas's Citadel, it's fine, but uh, this hand is kind of fair for the time being, but maybe we can make it broken later. Put back the non-matching Scalding Tarn. Mental Misstep's a good card. Very glad that thing isn't illegal in Legacy anymore. Oh god. Mine's so good. I love that card. Ah, this is the glue that holds together that 4-color deck. That makes sense now. Okay. Land would be great so that I can Emery. Nope. Uh-oh. I don't quite feel like I'm in trouble yet. Okay. Now I feel like I'm in trouble. The Merchant Scroll is just a tutor for Ancestral. Makes sense. I want an Ancestral in response to my opponent's Ancestral. Like them do Ancestral right here for some reason? Nope. Okay. I'm gonna like miss a land drop in order to try to resolve my Ancestral with a higher degree of certainty. Oh god, they didn't Ancestral. They know. They know. My Ancestral here. Oh, I play almost no Vintage. This is the first time I've streamed Vintage on this channel. And in the past, when I have played Vintage, it's almost exclusively been with shops. Like, I don't know what I'm doing. I think I'm just gonna get like dazed or forced here and die. Alright. Yeah, so I'm a legacy specialist. I focus on like controlling and prison strategies, so things like Death and Taxes, Red Prison, most Chalice stacks. Those are the things that tend to be in my wheelhouse. Maverick, Loam, that sort of stuff. Yeah, Puff, I did see that, which actually like kind of makes it interesting that some of those cards got reprinted. Okay, how am I winning? I have a bounce card for this. I do. He was a guest on the channel at one point. I sure am. I sure am. Well, we play a lot of donation deck lists on this channel. So while I say I'm a legacy specialist, I'm less of a specialist than I used to be in terms of deck choice. Alright. I think we're gonna like work on maybe getting a Bolas's Citadel into play. Even without the activated ability, the ability to like churn through my deck would be nice if a Goblin Engineer somehow lives. That's that's conceptually what seems good to me right now. I don't just want to get I don't want to demo tutor for anything right now because it'll expose the Badlands or Underground Sea that I get to this wasteland. Oh, this can't be good. I don't know what this is going to be, but I'm not going to like it. We're gonna Goblin Welder it into play, question mark. Forgot Engineer has a restriction to it. So in the past, when I played Engineer, it's been in Legacy Painter, which doesn't run like a 6-drop or anything like that. So it's always just been everything. That's very clearly not the case. Oh god, Renin 6 Strip Mine lock? Oh, that's brutal. This deck is just like Ghosts of Legacy Past. Good news is my creatures are X2s. The bad news is my artifacts are off. I lose one land a turn. I can't play non-basic lands or they also die. I think we're pretty handily dead. All right. My opponent has Treasure Cruise. Like, that's enough. I did not see the Vintage Battle of Wits deck, but I can imagine the shenanigans. So, based on my feelings from the first 4 rounds, I don't know that this deck is really up to snuff. Like, compared to the Legacy version, you only have 4 blasts instead of 8. Or, well, you only have 4 blasts, and the Legacy version can play up to 8, which is a better way to say that. And Pyroblast seems pretty darn good in Vintage. So, like, you just stop Ancestrals, Time Walks, a couple other restricted cards, hits Paradoxical Outcome, and a bunch of other things of this nature. But like it hasn't felt like we've been doing anything all that objectively powerful today in comparison to what our opponents have been doing. So, like the paradoxical outcome deck was faster than us. For opposing combo decks, we don't actually have all that much permission. Our defense grids backfired a couple of different times. I don't know that this like slow grind is where I conceptually want to be with a vintage deck. We'll see. Like we get one more round to redeem this list. I enjoy Legacy Painter. Like it's a fun deck. Yeah, so like this is a great example of exactly what I'm talking about. Like I'm probably keeping this hand because I get to go defense grid into Emery, but like my protected play that I'm setting up with my turn 1 is just Emery, right? Here we go. Scrubland? Sort of like Hate Bear's deck, maybe? Oh god. Alright. Do your thing. I mean, I'm on board with what our opponent is doing. I don't think I get the luxury of getting a basic here because I need blue mana. So this is gonna open me up to Wasteland. I think I'm supposed to get Volcanic here so that I have all of my colors. All right. Yeah, this is not so bad. So now I'll Lightning Bolt the Ren Wingmare on their turn. Or do I just do it now? Probably just safer to do it now. This Lightning Bolt can go straight to exile. We'll win without it somehow. I've never submitted Dryad Militant in a vintage list. I've submitted it in multiple different legacy decks. Joke's on you, sucker. I'm just gonna like trade 1/2s with your creatures. So Grindstone's basically free. Play a Grindstone. Emery has found Mox Ruby. So I think I just trade Emery for probably Spirit of the Labyrinth, and then play a second Emery next turn. And then if that Emery's good, I'll keep it around, and if that Emery's bad, I'll trade it for another creature. Sure. I have Grindstone in play, not Painter. Like I can Pyroblast it, but the card would go directly to exile because of Dryad Militant. Okay, there's a Painter Servant. Um, so next turn I just get Painter Servant, and the following turn I win. Seems good. I don't think I need to hold up Pyroblast for anything, given what my opponent has shown me so far. So let's just play another Grindstone. I can take that hit just fine. Oh my god, opponent had like a silence or Orum's chant, and then they played Deathrite Shaman so they couldn't cast it. Oh, that's a punt. Ooh, that's rough. Everything is blue. Okay. Um, is there anything that I lose to? Yeah, if I don't kill one of these things versus if I do? Yeah, I think I just leave this up for removal. Neat. All right. So my opponent is kind of like junk 8 bears. Maybe like 4 colors. Maybe there's some things like decay in there. Kind of hard to tell. It seems like the breach plan might be hard between like Thalia and Dryad Militant and like maybe Null Rod effects. I assume my opponent is on a lot of Null Rods. Maybe Stony Silences too. I think I want some of this stuff. I also don't think Ensnaring Bridge is crazy. But like a bunch of my opponent's things are going to have like 2 power. 12? Oh god. Alright. So like, I don't want Defense Grid. I wonder if I trim an Underworld Breach. Leave 1 to tutor for. So that I have like that combo backdoor. Yeah, I'm fine with shaving Pyroblast. So now thinking about the Ensnaring Bridge. Need Pyroblast to kill rods, that's fair. I could also just say, like, I am going to win via Painter Grindstone in this match and cut my Brain Freeze. Yeah. And now I'm just, like, not sure about the Ensnaring Bridge. Maybe I do it when I'm on the play, but not when I'm on the draw. I also just have, like, a bunch of stuff that can get stuck in my hand. Let's try without it. And then reevaluate when I'm on the play. I have a bolt for the first bear that my opponent plays, and then a card that I probably can't cast. A situational card, a card that bounces null rods later, and is 10 out of 10. Okay. A Vryn Wingmare here would be kind of a pain. Yeah. It's harsh. Do I have 3 basic lands? Do have 3 basic lands. So I'm not obligated to fetch here. That's a 3rd basic land. Actually, does my opponent's deck play Aven Mind Sensor? My opponent's deck plays Aven Mind Sensor. I should fetch now, but fetching now plays into Strip Mine. I'm not going to play around Aven Mind Sensor, but let the record show that I was thinking about it. Yet. Okay, at this point, I think I'm dead to that. Like, the Ghost Quarter will be Strip Mine. My Lightning Bolt costs 4. I can't Lightning Bolt next turn. That's fair. That's fair. I play a lot of that sort of Magic, where like synergistic effects stack up so that your opponent cannot do their primary game plan. And Vintage doesn't actually have all that much removal. So like as far as cards that actually hard remove things, I have a Lightning Bolt and a Braid, right? So like a lot of times when you play those hate bears, they are just going to resolve and stick around. Yep. Okay, we found Grindstone. So now we can Goblin Engineer for Painter Servant. I get red so that if I get null rotted, I can still activate. Okay, so Grindstone is in there, so I'll get Painter Servant. Yeah, if my opponent plays Graveyard Hate and nukes my graveyard, like, so be it. I accept. Null Rod. So I'll Echoing Truth that away at some point. Alright, so I can Emery and put Grindstone in play this turn. Maybe just playing Welder was better there. Put an X3 into play now, sacrificing Mox Ruby. Everything is blue, and now because of the Thalia tax, I can't pay for a Mox Ruby. It's not free anymore. That's okay. Now all I need to do is just find land. Mind, very good. Pyroxene Revoker also quite good. My opponent has a lot of targets. I've named Emery. This is fine. Opponent isn't currently doing any damage to us. Now it's just the waiting game. Gonna be a slow one. Oh, shit. Ahem. I'm gonna say no to that one, and I'm gonna say no to this one, and I'm also gonna say no to that one. All right. I I think at this point I'm okay with giving this one to my opponent. They've earned it. GG's. Okay, so we ended up 1-4 this league. As a whole, I just didn't really feel like this deck was objectively as powerful as the things that my opponents were doing. Maybe like last round accepted. I feel like it was definitely on par with the like 8 Bears deck that my opponent was playing. It seems like we're slower than like PO. It doesn't seem like we have as much interaction as other blue decks do. So like we're lacking a force of will, for example, because we don't actually have all that many blue cards. So yeah, that's a really good way to put it, Hackbert. This feels like a mid step between Legacy and Vintage in terms of power level, because this deck is like very obviously better than Legacy Painter, but it doesn't feel as good as other things that like are going on in Vintage. Um, I don't know how much the resiliency matters when your opponents are on average doing things that are more powerful and require fewer pieces than you are. So like PO, for example, is kind of a 1 card combo with how your deck is built, right? So that like you PO, you draw a whole bunch of cards, they draw you in another PO, and you just like churn through your deck. Whereas with this deck, most of the time I'm relying on like a 2 card combo that's interactable via like counter spells, lightning bolts, abrades, bounce spells, removal. So like we're resilient, but you can interact with us from just about every axis. And as a whole, I don't like where this puts this deck. Like I know that I made mistakes this league, but this felt less powerful than just about every other vintage deck I've ever registered. Oh yeah, I mean I love hate bear decks. It's I'm not gonna say it's a problem, but it's a thing that is in my life. Um, so at Eternal Weekend, how many years ago was that now? Three? Like Eternal Weekend 3 years ago, I played Hate Bears, and 4 years ago, I played Unpowered Null Rod Eldrazi. Somewhere in that ballpark. The year count might be off by one or two. Um, so like those are the decks that I tend to play. Anyway, this was a really enjoyable stream though. Like I enjoyed this a lot. Very much open to vintage donations in the future for anyone watching the YouTube video who wants to see more vintage on my channel. Very, very much open to that. Donation stuff will always be in the YouTube description if you're interested in that sort of thing. My website, Thraben University, is down at this exact time, but I'll get it back up so you can take a look at the donation queue. Um, let's see. I've already played this, so this is down. I'm not 100% sure what's technically up next in the queue. It might be Mono Blue Martyr. I'll figure that out when I get the website back up and running. All right, have a great rest of the day, folks. I'm going to turn you over to Arkin for some legacy action.